Let me ask you, does your inbox have over 2 digits worth of items in it? If you look at the bottom left corner of the Outlook window, is the number more than 99? If so, we need to talk. Your inbox is not a storage facility, yet this is where our communications end up, not only directly related to email, but also meeting requests, out-of-office replies, basically everything that we work with in Outlook. Outlook Office has enhanced the feature set with more tools to do more with these items that actually accomplish it in fewer steps. Michael is a fairly new employee, so he hasn't had time to accumulate this stuff. I'll use the word stuff instead of junk. The stuff that many of us who have used Outlook for a long time have. But he does have some new stuff in here, and some that will be useful in showing new features. And since most people have most of the things in their inbox, this is where we should start. I'll start by having you look at your inbox pane. It may look very similar and familiar, but you might think that something looks a little different. It is. The default view is now called Conversation View, and you can see that if you look at the header because my inbox is set to the new Conversation View. If you don't see conversations here in parentheses like mine, click Arrange By and choose Show as Conversations to view yours this way. What does this mean? Well, it means that they have reorganized things, and they aren't chronological or by the person who sent them or the date. The conversation view takes all of the messages in a conversation thread and puts them in a collapsible, expandable group. That's very useful because now I can collapse those and save a lot of inbox space. If you're like me, you could have 10, 20, even 30 different messages that are related to each other. I can now see them as one entry instead of 20 or 30 entries. Let's look at one of these conversations. Remember that we have the widgets on the left-hand side for several things, including the days of the week, like it was sent yesterday, today, tomorrow, last week, last month. If I move down, I see that I have a conversation about upgrading to Outlook. I know it's a conversation because it has this little expanding widget next to it. I'll click on it once to select it, and then click on it again to expand it. Then I'll scroll down so we can see it a little better. Upgrading to Outlook is the subject of a conversation, and there are several messages within that conversation. Michael has received 2 different messages from Aaron regarding this topic, and he has sent 2 replies, so there is a total of 4 messages in this thread. We see the same types of icons. For example, did you reply to it? Has it been opened? Is it new? We also see something interesting on the right-hand side next to Michael's messages. It doesn't tell us a date, but instead it says Sent Items. Not only can I expand and collapse things to keep my inbox a little smaller, but I also don't have to bounce back and forth between multiple folders. Michael is receiving Aaron's messages in his inbox, but Michael doesn't have to go to Sent Items in order to find or see his responses. They're all right here, and that's why this extra little entry on the right is telling us exactly what folder that comes from. Conversations will continue to track all of the messages in a thread, even if they're stored in multiple folders. I think that's great because even though it took me a lot of time to get used to this view, I was used to the old flat version where everything was chronological, but now I don't have to bounce around as much. And since I store almost everything in custom folders, this saves me a lot of time and lets me follow the thread of conversation, not only over a few days, but especially things that are projects occurring over several months. Another cool thing I've discovered is that even if someone changes the subject line in their response, it still knows that it's part of the discussion because of the information stored in the email. So you don't have to worry about the threads breaking when someone manages or changes the subject line. And when someone sends a reply to the thread, the entire conversation is moved to the top of the stack since it is now current again. So even if something has been sitting in your inbox for a couple of months, and remember, this also works in other folders, when somebody finally gets around to replying, it will move that entire conversation up. This really is good, But, like I said, it's also a little confusing because we're used to having to look down and scroll a while to find older messages. So, give it a chance, but I think you'll like it once you get used to it because it saves a lot of time and a lot of bouncing back and forth between folders. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to tell you. A conversation can actually split. When a message gets 2 or more responses, it can split because you're talking to different people, and you'll see a designation with the subject that says Split Conversation. So it makes it easy to follow when you branch off. And, for example, you're talking to different departments and different people about a similar topic. So, what if you don't like this? There are a couple of options you can use if you don't like this particular view. It really shouldn't be a big surprise. I'll move to the top where it says Arrange by Date Conversations, and if I come down, I can choose a different version, the From, the To, Categories, Flag Dates, and so forth. If I move all the way down, I can turn off Show in Groups as well, and there's an option specifically for conversations. Some of the specific wording will change in the final release, but the functionality will still be the same. I can also turn off showing messages from other folders. And there's another feature called Show Senders above the subject. Always expand conversations, and use the classic indented view. So I haven't done anything really. I've just clicked on that drop-down header and I can see several options. Of course, if we want to turn the conversations off, that's pretty much a given. We understand that. Also, showing messages from other folders is pretty self-explanatory. You may not have noticed as we were looking at our messages before, but by default, the subject shows above the sender. We have an option to switch that around. I'll click on that, and that puts it back to the version we're used to, where the name actually comes above the subject. Well, because the conversation view is intended to focus more on the way we work, we can also flip that over and have the subject below. This, again, is one of those personal choices. And, of course, now that I've clicked off of it, you can't see it anymore. But we also saw Always Expand Conversations, so I don't have to expand it myself or use the classic indented view. Those are the default views that we saw in 2007 and before. So, lots of choices. I wanted to show you where you could get to them, and all of those were right from whatever folder view I happened to be in. In this case, they happen to be the inbox. An alternative would be to make sure that you're on the View tab, and then we can work with different arrangements as well. We have a Conversations option, and here, in the final release of the software, this option will be moved to the left of this group as its own group called Conversations. It has the same button, but it's called Conversation Options, and the group also has a checkbox that allows you to enable or disable the conversation view quickly. I hope you're comfortable with things being in a couple of places, because that's not new. I think the conversation view is probably the most obvious. Beyond just the interface differences, this really changes the way we work and how we look for things, as well as how many different locations we have to go to.